Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora gameplay, setting, and characters. James Cameron's Avatar series takes place on Pandora, a lush moon orbiting the gas giant Polyphemus. In Ubisoft's Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, players will explore the western frontier. This is a site of the moon that has not been shown before, which means massive entertainment won't be tied down by iconic locations from the film. The developers will still be able to utilize the wildlife and foliage of Pandora to craft something memorable, but hopefully it won't get too fanservicey with its references and callbacks. As far as what to expect while exploring the moon, there could be RDA bases lined across each area in a region, and the player will have to infiltrate them to free the sector from the military's influence. I'd kinda be the opposite of Far Cry, where players might even explore environments to protect wildlife from hunters. When building this world, massive entertainment needs to make sure players aren't stuck exploring jungles over and over. Pandora needs to be diversified with unique biomes and bizarre weather patterns to make this environment feel as stunning as it does in the film. Despite dropping a gorgeous and genuinely exciting trailer, Ubisoft was tight-lipped about what Frontiers of Pandora will actually involve. Still, that isn't to say that we're completely in the dark here. Put in the shoes of Pandora's indigenous Nausicaa, players will be able to fight for survival while exploring the never-before-seen western frontier of Pandora. It turns out, players will be able to get a very close look at this new region. Despite the eye-catching third-person action showcased in the trailer, Ubisoft states that Frontiers of Pandora will actually be a first-person action adventure. In what's become a bit of the norm for Ubisoft, this Avatar will also be set in a sprawling open world, with Ubisoft promising that this next-gen title will provide players with a gorgeous and immersive experience. While we know that players will be fighting off the invading RDA forces as they explore this new region of Pandora, the publisher has yet to reveal whether fans can expect to see any familiar faces from the films. Still, whether this game ends up sharing a setting with Avatar 2 or not, upon release Ubisoft states that Frontiers of Pandora will show off a new region to the planet. Explore the western frontier, a never-before-seen part of Pandora, stated Ubisoft. Explore a living and reactive world inhabited by unique creatures and new characters and push back the formidable RDA forces that threaten it. With James Cameron's repeatedly delayed Avatar 2 film scheduled to hit cinemas on the December 16, 2022, it would make sense for Ubisoft to release Frontiers of Pandora just in time to capitalize on the hype. With Massive also working on a yet-to-be-titled Ubisoft Star Wars game, it seems as though the Swedish studio is being set up to be Ubisoft's go-to creators for large-scale movie tie-ins. Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, news and rumors. James Cameron shares his thoughts on Frontiers of Pandora. James Cameron has revealed his thoughts on Ubisoft's upcoming game during an IGN interview. Confirming he's taking a hands-off approach, he explained, "We're very excited about what Ubisoft is doing with their game authoring. I don't tell them what to do, they know their world, their business, their market. We just keep a close eye that they don't do anything that's not canonical in terms of Nausicaa culture and what the RDA is doing on Pandora and all that sort of thing." Studio boss departs. Ubisoft Massive studio head, David Paulfelt, has confirmed that he is leaving the studio later this year, after 17 years there. Previously, Paulfelt had taken a step back from his managing director role, stating an intention to return in a strategic role after a 6-month break. However, it has now been reported that he will be leaving Ubisoft entirely. Paulfelt's decision is partly driven by the growing numbers of staff at Ubisoft Massive, telling Hit Points, "I think my philosophy and my skills work well for a certain kind of group of a certain kind of size. I don't think I'm the right manager for what the studio has become. I'm perfectly at peace with it." Between the development of Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora and the open-world Star Wars project the studio is working on, it's no surprise that it's expanding rapidly. Years of post-launch content. Ubisoft is planning a long life for Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, when it releases next year it seems. In a recent Q2 earnings call, Ubisoft CFO Frederick Daguet said, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is a big game next to the highly awaited movie. The development is progressing well and is a beautiful world delivered by the Snowdrop engine. That will be a very long game in terms of content delivered over many years. Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora PC requirements. Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora has no PC requirements as of yet, but by looking at one of Ubisoft's biggest modern games, we can get a rough idea of what the requirements could be. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is Ubisoft's most visually stunning game yet, and its minimum requirements on low are Windows 10, Intel i5-4460 or AMD Ryzen 3 1200 CPU, NVIDIA GTX 960 or AMD Radeon R9 380 GPU, 8GB RAM and 50GB of hard drive space. Its recommended requirements for 30 frames per second on high are Windows 10, Intel i7-4790 or AMD Ryzen 5 1600 CPU, NVIDIA GTX 1060 or AMD Radeon RX 570 GPU, 8GB RAM and 50GB of SSD space. And its recommended requirements for 60 frames per second on high are Intel i7-6700 or AMD Ryzen 7 1700, NVIDIA GTX 1080 or AMD Vega 64, 8GB of RAM and 50GB of SSD space. As Frontiers of Pandora will be launching on next-gen consoles, it's probably safe to assume that its requirements will be even higher than this. If your PC can't handle Valhalla, it probably can't handle this Avatar game.